Hi, I'm Mohammed, the student nurse from Amref International University. I'm going to take you guys through the blood. It's a unit in anatomy and physiology. And by the end of this session, it's just going to be a very short session. By the end of the session, you guys will be able to list the components of the blood, the functions of the component of the blood, and describe the structure of the red blood cell, white blood cell, and the platelets, which are the components of the blood. And we are just going to jump straight in. We are going to start with the definition of blood. As you all know, all of us know what blood is, and the simple definition we are going to say, blood is a fluid connective tissue. It circulates constantly around the body, and the function of the blood that we know, it has a lot of functions. One is transportation. It transports oxygen, nutrients, hormones, heat, antibodies, and all other immune systems. It also transports the clotting factors, waste products, and many other stuff. So we are going to start with the first component of blood, that is the plasma. The plasma is 90 to 92% water, and it's the structure of the characteristics of the plasma. It's clear, it's straw-colored, watery in fluid, and it constitutes 55% of the blood volume. And that means if it constitutes the 55%, the remaining 45%, it's going to be the cellular components of the blood. And so what are the functions of the plasma? The plasma carries plasma proteins, electrolytes, nutrients, waste products, hormones, and gases. And so that's the fluid part of the blood, the plasma. So we are going to go to the cellular part of the blood. We have the erythrocytes, the leukocytes, and the platelets. So those are the cellular functions, the cellular parts of the blood. Plasma protein, which is also among the things that's being transported in the plasma, it makes up 7% of the plasma and remains within the blood. So they remain within the blood because of their size. They are so huge that the hugeness in size makes them not be able to penetrate outside the capillary pores into the tissues. They create an osmotic pressure which keeps plasma fluids within the blood vessels. This allows, and blood viscosity is determined by the presence of two plasma proteins, that's albumin and fibrinogen. Other than immunoglobulin, we also have plasma protein being produced in the liver. We know immunoglobulins, which are being produced in the liver. We also have the plasma proteins being produced in the liver. And in the plasma proteins, we are going to start with we have the albumin, which is the most abundant. It takes 60% of the blood. And what are the functions? It maintains normal osmotic pressure, and it carries molecules for fatty acids, steroids, and hormones within the blood. We also have globulins, which acts as antibodies that binds to neutralize foreign materials. They also transport hormones and mineral salts. Example, thyroglobulin carries thyroxine, transferrin carries mineral iron, hemopoxin transporting free heme back to the liver. The globulins also inhibit proteolytic enzymes, e.g. microglobulin inhibits trypsin activity. Then we also, another thing that's being transported within the plasma, within the plasma, we have the electrolytes. With the functions of the electrolytes, we have example of the electrolytes. We have the calcium, which its function is for muscular contraction. We also have another function of the electrolytes. We have the transmission of nerve impulse. That's the function of calcium and potassium. We also have sodium. They also maintain acid-base balance. Those are the functions, some of the functions of the electrolytes. We also, another function of the plasma is that they help in transportation of waste products. These waste products include urea, uric acid, and creatinine. They are waste products of protein metabolism. they are also transported. We also have hormones. We all know hormones, the chemical messengers. They are being transported within the plasma. We also have the gases, which are also being transported. Now let's go to the cellular component. We are done with the fluid component of the blood. That was the plasma. Now let's go to the cellular component. The cells are synthesized in the red bone marrow, which is present at the end of the long bones and flat bones, or irregular bones. Main sites include the sternum, with its here, and we have the ribs, pelvis, and the skull. Those are the flat bones and the irregular bones where the cells are being produced. They originate from the pluripotent stem cell, and we are going to start with the first one, the erythrocytes. That's the red blood cell, and it's the most abundant. That's why the blood, the color, it gives the blood its color, the red blood, because it's the most abundant. It's 99%, and some of the characteristics of the red blood cells we have, they are biconcave in shape. You find they are biconcave in shape with no nucleus. They don't have nucleus. They also thin portions, but they have the middle of the red blood cells. It's thin to allow for the diffusion of gases. Then also the cells are flexible to allow them so that they can squeeze through the narrow capillaries. So they are so flexible. And the red blood cells, also known as the erythrocytes, they have the hemoglobin. What's the function of the hemoglobin? The hemoglobin helps in the transportation of gases, mainly oxygen. And the lifespan of the red blood cell is almost 100. It's 120 days. A normal human being has almost 30 trillion red blood cells within the body, and the red blood cells are formed through the process of erythropoiesis, which takes about 7 days. So the mature cells that are called the reticulocytes are being produced, and they are being sent into the bloodstream when they are still not yet, how can we say it, when they are still not yet fully developed. They've not matured. They mature within the bloodstream, and when they are still reticulocytes, they have the red blood. They have nucleus, and when they mature into the red blood cells, they lose the nucleus. So we also have red blood cell synthesis require vitamin B12 and folic acid. They are absorbed from the gut. Vitamin B12, however, needs intrinsic factors for absorption. So let's check into the hemoglobin. It's a large complex molecule containing globular protein, that's the globin, and the pigmented ion containing the complex heme. That's why if you compose them together, they bring you the name hemoglobin. It contains 4 globin chain and 4 heme units, each with an atom of ion. So each atom of ion can combine with oxygen molecules. Ion is carried in the bloodstream, bound to transferrin, and is stored in the liver. That's where mostly MCQs, they like testing that question a lot. So someone needs to be very careful while checking that. We also have blood rich in oxygen. We all know that it's bright red. It's saturated. It's bright red in color. That's mainly arterial blood because it has high level of oxyhemoglobin. That's oxyhemoglobin is a combination of oxygen and hemoglobin. Venous blood is usually darker, a little bit darker, since it's not fully saturated. Okay, control of erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis is the process by which blood cells are formed, and the hormone erythropoietin produced in the kidney controls erythropoiesis. And primary stimulus for erythropoiesis is hypoxia. Hypoxia may happen due to maybe there's lack of enough blood in the body. The blood volume is very low. Anemic patients, people with having breathing difficulties, like the lungs are not well functioning. Those are the kind of things that may lead to hypoxia. So the erythropoietin, what are the functions of erythropoietin? Stimulates increased production of proerythroblast, increased release of reticulocytes in the body, and speeds up reticulocyte maturation. How the erythrocytes how are they the destruction, how are they demolished? It's through hemolysis, and it's carried out by the macrophages in the spleen, bone marrow, and the liver. With aging, the membranes of the erythrocytes become fragile. The ions are released, and they are transported back to the bone marrow to form new hemoglobin cell. Where are the ions coming from? Uh, Hemoglobin is, there's heme and the globin part. The heme, which it's when the hemoglobin is being destructed, there's iron, that's where the iron is coming from. It's being returned back to the, sorry, just a minute.